Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about a word we all love, freedom. The problem is most people misunderstand it. They think freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want. But true freedom isn't about breaking rules. It's about breaking limits. It's about mastering yourself so deeply that no fear, no excuse, no obstacle can control you. Because if you can't say no to your own bad habits, if you're a slave to other people's opinions, or if you're trapped in the prison of your own mind, you're not free. Imagine waking up every single day feeling like someone else is holding the steering wheel of your life. You're in the passenger seat, watching decisions get made for you, watching opportunities pass you by, and telling yourself it's because of your boss, your family, your upbringing, or the economy. That's what most people live like. Believing they're not in control, when in reality, they've been holding the keys all along, but they've been handing them out to everyone around them. Every time you say, "I can't because of them," you're surrendering control. Every time you make an excuse, you're giving someone else the power to decide how your story will end. It's like having a mansion but locking yourself in one room because someone told you the rest wasn't yours to explore. The truth is, until you own your choices, you'll never be free. I remember talking to a man who was convinced that his lack of progress was entirely the fault of his employer. "They don't promote me. They don't give me raises. They don't value me," he said. And on the surface, it sounded reasonable. But when I asked him how often he had updated his skills, sought out new opportunities, or pitched ideas, he admitted never. He was waiting for someone else to fix his life. When that realization hit him, it wasn't comfortable. It was a gut punch. But it was also the first time in years that he felt a sense of power. Because here's the truth. As long as the problem is out there, you can't do anything. The moment you realize it's also in here, you suddenly have options. And that man, he started learning new skills online, networking with other professionals, and within a year, he doubled his income. Not because the company changed, but because he changed. That's the power of owning your choices. When you take responsibility, you're not blaming yourself for everything that's gone wrong. You're not saying the pain wasn't real, the circumstances weren't unfair, or the obstacles weren't massive. You're saying, "This is my life, and even if it's not my fault, it's my responsibility to make it better." That's the difference between people who stay stuck and people who rise. The stuck ones wait for permission. They wait for someone to open the door. The ones who rise kick the door down and walk through it. Here's the part that hurts. Taking ownership means letting go of excuses you've been protecting for years. Excuses are comforting. They tell you it's not your fault. But they also keep you powerless. It's easier to say, "I can't because of them," than to say, "I could, but I haven't." And yet the second sentence is the one that leads to freedom. Why? Because if you haven't yet, that means you still can. Think about how often we hand over our emotional keys to others. Someone insults you, and you give them the power to ruin your day. A co-worker gets credit for your idea, and you let it destroy your motivation. A friend doesn't support your dream, and you let that be the reason you quit. Every time you do that, you're telling the world, "I'm not in charge here." And the world will happily take control if you let it. But when you decide that your mood, your energy, and your drive are non-negotiable, that no one else gets to decide them, you stop being a victim and start being a creator. Taking ownership isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. Every day you'll face moments where it's easier to blame, complain, or avoid responsibility. And every day you'll have to choose to grab the keys back. That might mean apologizing when you mess up instead of pointing fingers. It might mean admitting you've been procrastinating on your goals because of fear, not because of lack of time. It might mean choosing to work on yourself even when everyone else around you is coasting. And let me be real with you. It's not comfortable, but comfort never leads to freedom. Ownership does. I want you to imagine your life 5 years from now if you keep waiting for other people to make it better. Picture it. The same frustrations, the same regrets, the same someday that never comes. Now imagine your life 5 years from now if you start owning every choice today. Imagine the skills you could develop, the connections you could make, the courage you could build. Imagine the doors you could open simply by deciding they were yours to walk through. That's the gap between those who own their lives and those who rent them out. So here's your call to action. Pick one area of your life where you've been blaming someone else. Just one. Maybe it's your career, your health, your finances, your relationships. Whatever it is, draw a line in the sand today and say, this is mine now. Stop waiting for them to change. Stop waiting for the situation to magically improve. Decide that you're the one who's going to do something about it. Because the moment you take ownership, you stop asking, can I? And start asking, how will I? And when you start asking the right question, the answers begin to show up. The first step to true freedom is to stop giving away your keys. Take them back, hold them tight, and drive your life exactly where you want it to go. No permission required. Most people spend their whole lives chasing a definition of success that was handed to them by someone else. From the time we're children, we're told what a good life should look like. Get good grades, go to college, get a secure job, buy a house, climb the ladder, retire at 65. And without even questioning it, we take that checklist and start running. But here's the problem. You can cross off every single box on that list and still feel completely empty. That's because true freedom can't exist if your definition of success belongs to someone else. If you're living someone else's dream, you're trapped, no matter how big your paycheck is or how impressive your title sounds. I once met a lawyer who, by all external measures, was the definition of success. He drove a luxury car, had a corner office, and made more money than most people in his city. But the truth, he was miserable. Every Sunday night, he felt a deep pit in his stomach, knowing he had to go back to work the next morning. His dream had never been to be a lawyer. He had always wanted to teach history. But somewhere along the way, his dream got replaced by his parents' expectations, by society's version of making it. When I asked him why he didn't make the change, he said the thing so many of us say, what will people think? The turning point came when he realized those people wouldn't be the ones living his life every day. He would. And when the weight of that truth sank in, he made the leap. He left his law firm, took a pay cut, and started teaching. And do you know what he told me later? I've never been richer in my life. He wasn't talking about money. He was talking about waking up every morning, excited to live the day ahead. That's real wealth. That's real success. When you let other people define success for you, you're essentially agreeing to run a race that doesn't matter to you. You can cross the finish line, hold the trophy, and still feel like a loser inside, because deep down you know it's not your race. The tragedy is that many people never stop to question the path they're on until it's too late. They get to the top of the ladder only to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall. Redefining success starts with asking a brutally honest question. What do I actually want? Not what your parents wanted for you. Not what looks impressive on social media. Not what makes other people nod with approval. What do you want? For some, success might mean building a business. For others, it might mean having the freedom to travel. For someone else, it might mean being an amazing parent or making art that matters. There is no universal definition, and that's the point. Your definition has to be yours. But here's the challenge. When you start chasing your own version of success, you will face resistance. People will tell you you're crazy, irresponsible, unrealistic. That's because when you break out of the mold, you make other people uncomfortable. You remind them that they too have the choice to live differently, and not everyone is ready to face that truth. This is where courage comes in. Redefining success isn't just about knowing what you want. It's about being willing to walk toward it, even when the world doesn't clap for you. I want you to think about your current goals. Are they truly yours, or are they leftovers from someone else's dream? Are you chasing them because they light you up inside, or because they'll make you look good on paper? Be honest with yourself, because your freedom depends on it. I've seen too many people spend decades in careers, relationships, or lifestyles that look great on the outside, but feel like a cage on the inside. And every year they wait to change it, the bars of that cage get thicker. Here's what I want you to do. Take 30 minutes today to write your own definition of success. Describe in detail what a successful life looks like for you, not just in your career, but in your relationships, your health, your personal growth, your contribution to the world. Don't think about what's realistic. Don't think about what's socially acceptable. Think about what would make you wake up every morning with fire in your heart. Once you've written it, compare it to the life you're living right now. If they're miles apart, it's time to start making changes. Small, consistent steps toward the life that's truly yours. You can't experience true freedom until you stop chasing applause and start chasing alignment. The day you decide that your life will be measured by your own standards is the day you stop being a prisoner to the expectations of others. That's when you stop running someone else's race and start creating your own. And that's when you'll realize you were never behind, you were just on the wrong track. So get off that track today. Redefine your finish line. And when you cross it, it will actually mean something, because it will be yours. Your mind is the most powerful tool you will ever own, and yet for most people, it's also the biggest barrier to their freedom. Every single day, there's a battle happening inside your head, a war between the voice that pushes you forward and the voice that holds you back. If you're not intentional about which voice wins, the one that feeds on fear, doubt, and insecurity will take over without you even realizing it. You can be talented, hardworking, and surrounded by opportunities, but if your mind isn't working for you, none of it will matter. You won't step forward because your thoughts will convince you to stay still. Think about it. How many dreams die not because the person lacked ability, but because they convinced themselves they weren't ready, they weren't good enough, or it wasn't the right time. I once worked with a woman who had an amazing business idea. She knew it would work. She had the skills, the network, and the resources to make it happen. But every time she thought about launching, her mind would start flooding her with reasons to wait. What if I fail? What if people laugh at me? What if I'm not prepared enough? Those thoughts became her reality. For 2 years, she stayed stuck in the planning phase while other, less qualified people jumped in and succeeded. When we finally worked together, I told her something simple. You will never feel ready. Readiness is not a feeling. It's a decision. Once she shifted her thinking from, I'm not ready, to, I can figure it out as I go, she took action within weeks. 6 months later, her business was thriving. Nothing magical had changed except her mindset. That's why mastering your mind is not optional if you want true freedom. Because if you don't take charge of it, your thoughts will default to the negative. The human brain is wired to focus on danger. It's a survival instinct. Thousands of years ago, that was useful. Today, it means your brain will naturally find reasons to be cautious, hesitant, and afraid. Freedom comes when you consciously rewire those patterns. Here's the truth. Your thoughts are not facts. Just because a thought appears in your mind doesn't make it true. But most people never challenge their thoughts. They simply accept them. They think, I'm not capable, and believe it without question. They think it's too late and close the door on possibilities. They think, this is just the way I am, and lock themselves into a false identity. But the reality is, you can train your mind just like you train a muscle. The more you practice replacing negative, limiting thoughts with empowering ones, the stronger that mental muscle becomes. It starts with awareness. You can't change a thought you don't notice. for the next week, pay attention to the thoughts that run through your mind, especially in moments of stress or challenge. When you catch a thought that's holding you back, like, I'm not ready, or I can't do this, stop and ask yourself, is this absolutely true? Or is it just a story I'm telling myself? More often than not, it's just a story. And if it's a story, you can rewrite it. The next step is replacing it with something that moves you forward. This isn't about mindless positivity. It's about intentional focus. Instead of, I can't do this, try, I can learn how to do this. Instead of, I don't know enough, try, I can figure this out. Instead of, what if I fail? Try, what if I succeed? These small shifts have massive ripple effects because they change the way you feel. And when you feel differently, you act differently. One of the most liberating moments in life is when you realize you are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of your thoughts. That means you have the authority to decide which ones to entertain and which ones to reject. Every time you choose a thought that serves you, instead of one that limits you, you're breaking free from the mental prison that most people live in their entire lives. So here's your challenge for the next 7 days. Become the gatekeeper of your mind. Treat your thoughts like guests at the door. If a thought comes knocking that discourages you, doubts you, or diminishes you, don't invite it in. Let it pass by. But when a thought comes that empowers you, fuels you, or pushes you to grow, welcome it in and give it space to stay. If you do this consistently, you'll start to notice a shift, not just in your thinking, but in your entire life. True freedom starts in the mind. Before you can change your circumstances, you have to change your perspective. Before you can live a bigger life, you have to think in a bigger way. And before you can break free from external limitations, you have to break free from the internal ones. Master your mind, and you master your life. The chains that hold you aren't around your body. They're wrapped around your thoughts. And the key to unlocking them has been in your hands the entire time. Fear is the most silent and persuasive prison most people will ever live in. It doesn't have bars, guards, or a locked door, yet it holds more people captive than any physical jail. What makes fear so dangerous is that it convinces you it's protecting you. It whispers, stay where you are. Don't take that risk. Don't step out of line. And at first, that sounds safe. But the truth is, every time you obey fear, your world gets smaller. You start avoiding opportunities, avoiding challenges, avoiding anything that could stretch you. Before you know it, your life is a tiny circle of what's familiar, and you've called it security. But it's not security. It's a cage. I remember a friend who dreamed of moving abroad to start a new career. He had been talking about it for years. He knew the opportunities were better there. He knew he had the skills, and he knew it was exactly what he wanted. But every time he got close to making the move, fear would take over. What if I can't find a job? What if I fail? What if I'm lonely? What if I regret it? Those questions became the walls around him. He told himself he was being smart, that he was just waiting for the right time, but deep down he knew the truth. He was waiting for the fear to disappear. Years went by and nothing changed. Eventually, he realized the fear wasn't going to vanish. He had to move forward with it still in his chest. When he finally took the leap, he found a job within weeks, built a new circle of friends, and told me later, the scariest part wasn't moving. It was realizing I'd wasted years listening to fear. That's the thing. Fear doesn't go away before you take action. It often goes away because you take action. People think courage means you don't feel afraid, but that's wrong. Courage means you feel afraid and do it anyway. You can't wait until you feel ready, because ready is an illusion. Ready is just another word for comfortable, and growth is never comfortable. Fear thrives on what you don't know. It feeds on uncertainty. Your mind imagines the worst case scenarios and plays them on repeat, convincing you that danger is inevitable. But most of the time, the danger isn't real. It's just your brain trying to protect you from discomfort. Yes, sometimes fear is a warning to keep you safe from real harm. But more often, it's a warning that you're about to step into unknown territory. And the unknown is where all growth happens. Think about any major moment of progress in your life. Maybe it was your first day at a new school, your first job interview, your first public speech. You were nervous, maybe even terrified, but you did it anyway. And afterward, you realized the fear had been exaggerated. That's how it works. Fear feels huge before you act and small after you do. The only way to shrink fear is to move toward it. If you let fear dictate your decisions, it will steal your best opportunities. It will keep you in jobs you hate, relationships that drain you, and routines that numb you. And one day, you'll look back and realize fear didn't keep you safe. It kept you stuck. The people who live free aren't fearless. They just stop letting fear be the final voice in the room. Here's a practical way to start breaking fear's grip. Write down one thing you've been avoiding because of fear. Be specific. Then break it down into the smallest possible step you could take toward it. If you're afraid of public speaking, maybe your first step is sharing your opinion in a small meeting. If you're afraid of starting a business, maybe it's just talking to someone who's already done it. Action is the antidote to fear, and small action builds momentum. I also want you to reframe fear when it shows up. Instead of thinking, I'm scared, so I shouldn't do this, think, I'm scared, which means this matters to me. Fear is often a sign that you're on the edge of something important. If it didn't matter, you wouldn't care enough to be afraid. Your call to action is simple but not easy. Do something this week that scares you. Not recklessly, but intentionally. Step into a conversation you've been avoiding. Try something new that makes your hands shake. Apply for the opportunity you think you're not ready for. The more you practice walking through fear, the less power it has over you. Freedom doesn't come from eliminating fear. It comes from refusing to let fear be the thing that decides your future. The truth is, the life you want is on the other side of fear. The longer you avoid it, the longer you postpone that life. Stop waiting for fear to fade. Start moving toward it, step by step, until it realizes it can't control you anymore. When you do, you'll discover that the prison door was never locked. You just had to push it open. People talk about freedom like it's the absence of rules or obligations. But the truth is, freedom without discipline is chaos. If you can't control your own impulses, you're not free. You're a slave to them. Discipline is the quiet force that builds true freedom because it gives you the power to choose your actions instead of being dragged around by your moods, temptations, and excuses. Without discipline, you'll always live reactively, chasing short-term comfort at the cost of long-term fulfillment. With discipline, you can do the things you need to do even when you don't feel like doing them, and that's where real control begins. Think about any elite athlete, successful entrepreneur, or master in their field. None of them got there by doing only what felt good in the moment. They woke up early when they wanted to sleep in. They trained when they were tired. They kept going when nobody was watching. Why? Because they understood that discipline is the bridge between goals and results. They knew that if they gave in to every whim, they'd never reach their potential. The same is true for you. If you want to build a life of freedom, you must first build the discipline to sustain it. I remember working with a young man who wanted to get in shape. Every January, he'd get fired up, buy a gym membership, and go all in for a couple of weeks. But as soon as the motivation faded, so did his workouts. He told me, I just need to feel more motivated. I told him the opposite. You don't need more motivation. You need more discipline. Motivation is a mood and moods change. Discipline is a decision and decisions can be renewed daily. When he finally understood this, he stopped waiting to feel ready. He set a schedule, committed to it, and showed up whether he felt like it or not. Months later, he wasn't just stronger physically. He was stronger mentally because he had proven to himself that he could follow through no matter what. Discipline often gets a bad reputation. People think it's restrictive, like it's robbing them of spontaneity. But discipline doesn't limit your freedom. It protects it. When you're disciplined with your finances, you're free from debt. When you're disciplined with your time, you're free to spend it on what matters. When you're disciplined with your health, you're free to enjoy life without constant exhaustion or illness. Discipline is what keeps your life from being ruled by emergencies, regrets, and crises. The problem is most people approach discipline like an all-or-nothing sprint. They try to change everything at once, fail after a few days, and decide they're just not disciplined people. But discipline isn't a personality trait, it's a skill. And like any skill, it's built through consistent practice. You start small, you stay consistent, and you build from there. If you want to wake up earlier, don't jump from 8 a.m. to 5 a.m. overnight. Start with 15 minutes earlier. Stick with it until it's easy, then go another 15 minutes. If you want to read more, start with 10 minutes a day instead of an hour. The small steps may not look impressive, but they create momentum, and momentum creates transformation. One of the most powerful aspects of discipline is that it builds trust with yourself. Every time you do what you said you'd do, you strengthen your self-belief. You prove to yourself that you can rely on you. And when you trust yourself, you stop doubting whether you can handle challenges. You know you can because you've done it before, repeatedly. That's why disciplined people seem more confident. Their confidence isn't a performance. It's the natural result of keeping promises to themselves. But here's the catch: discipline isn't about perfection. You will slip up. You will miss a workout, eat the thing you said you wouldn't, skip the project you planned to do. That's okay. The goal isn't to never fail. It's to recover quickly. Most people fail once and throw the whole plan away. Disciplined people fail, adjust, and keep going. They understand that missing one day doesn't matter, but missing every day after because of guilt does. Here's what I want you to do. Pick one area of your life that's been suffering because of lack of discipline. Maybe it's your health, your finances, your relationships, or your personal growth. Choose one simple habit that would make a difference in that area and commit to it for the next 30 days, no matter how you feel. Write it down, schedule it, and treat it like a non-negotiable meeting with your future self. And when you don't feel like doing it, remind yourself that your feelings aren't in charge. Your decisions are. True freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want in the moment. It comes from creating a life you're proud of day after day. And that life is built with the bricks of discipline. The more you practice it, the more capable you become. The more capable you become, the more doors open for you. Discipline is not a prison. It's the master key to every locked door in your life. And once you've built it, there's no limit to where it can take you. The people you surround yourself with will either lift you toward freedom or pull you deeper into limitation. Human beings are deeply influenced by their environment, and the people in that environment are the most powerful force of all. Whether you realize it or not, you are constantly absorbing the energy, habits, beliefs, and attitudes of those around you. If you spend most of your time with people who complain, make excuses, and settle for less, you'll slowly start to normalize that way of living. But if you surround yourself with people who dream big, take action, and push themselves to grow, you'll naturally start raising your own standards. Your circle will either expand your vision or shrink it. That's why, if you want to live a life of true freedom, you must intentionally choose to spend time with freedom builders, not freedom breakers. I remember early in my career, I was surrounded by people who thought small. They weren't bad people. They were kind, funny, and comfortable to be around. But they lived in a world where stability was more important than growth, where the safest path was the only path, and where anyone who took big risks was labeled reckless. For a while, I started thinking the same way. I caught myself hesitating on opportunities, doubting my dreams, and justifying why. No, it wasn't the right time. It wasn't until I started attending events and networking with people who were actually doing the things I wanted to do that my mindset began to shift. Suddenly, I was in conversations with people who didn't ask, "Is it possible?" They asked, "How are we going to make it happen?" That one change in my environment altered the entire trajectory of my life. The truth is, it's nearly impossible to sustain a high standard for yourself when you're surrounded by people who live with low ones. You can be the most motivated person in the room, but if everyone around you is stagnant, their energy will start pulling you down. On the other hand, if you're surrounded by people who are constantly leveling up, you'll feel a natural push to keep up. You won't want to be the one who settles. This is why professional athletes train together, why masterminds exist, and why great leaders spend time with other great leaders. Growth is contagious, but so is complacency. You might be thinking, but what if my family or old friends don't have that mindset? Am I supposed to cut them out? Not necessarily. This isn't about abandoning people you care about. It's about being intentional with your influence. If certain people drain you or keep you small, you may need to limit how much time you spend in those conversations. You can still love them, but you can't allow them to be the loudest voices in your life. At the same time, you must actively seek out relationships that challenge and inspire you. One way to do this is to make a list of the qualities you want in your circle. Do you want friends who are positive, ambitious, honest, and supportive? Do you want mentors who are further along the path you're walking? Once you're clear on what you're looking for, start showing up in places where those people gather. That could mean joining a professional group, attending workshops, volunteering, or even engaging in online communities dedicated to growth. The point is, you have to put yourself in environments that feed the version of you that you want to become. When you spend time with freedom builders, something powerful happens. You start believing bigger things are possible for you. You see their wins and realize they're not lucky. They're disciplined, persistent, and willing to act. You start adopting their habits. You start thinking like they think, and that's when the shift occurs. When your baseline for what's normal rises so high that the old version of you wouldn't even recognize your new standards. Here's what I want you to do. Take a hard look at your current circle. Ask yourself, do these people help me grow, or do they keep me the same? Do they encourage me to take action, or do they talk me out of my dreams? Be honest, even if it's uncomfortable. Then, make a conscious choice to spend more time with those who elevate you and less time with those who hold you back. This might mean saying no to certain invitations. It might mean reaching out to new people. It might mean joining a group where you feel like the least experienced person in the room, because that's where the growth is. Freedom is not built in isolation, but it is also not built in the wrong company. Your environment is shaping you every single day, whether you notice it or not. So shape it on purpose. Surround yourself with people who push you to think bigger, act bolder, and live truer to your potential. When your circle is made up of freedom builders, you won't have to fight to stay motivated. Their very presence will keep you moving forward. And one day, you'll look around and realize you're not just free because of your own efforts. You're free because you chose to walk with people who were free themselves. That choice changes everything. Living by your values is the highest form of freedom because it means you're no longer swayed by the changing winds of other people's opinions, trends, or temptations. Values are your internal compass. They point you toward decisions that align with who you truly are. When you're clear on your values, you stop chasing approval, you stop compromising your integrity for convenience, and you stop feeling lost when life throws you curveballs. You have a solid foundation that can't be shaken, no matter what's happening around you. But without that clarity, you're like a ship without a rudder, drifting in whatever direction the tide of influence takes you. I've seen people sacrifice their values for temporary rewards, And it always comes at a cost. Sometimes it's subtle, like agreeing to something you don't believe in just to keep the peace. Other times it's bigger, like taking a job that goes against your principles because the paycheck is tempting. The problem is, every time you betray your values, you chip away at your self-respect. You might gain something in the short term, but you lose trust in yourself, and that loss runs deeper than most people realize. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, yet he remained one of the freest men in the world because he never abandoned his values. His body was locked away, but his spirit couldn't be touched. That's the power of living by your values. It gives you an unshakable sense of self that no external force can take away. When you know who you are and what you stand for, you stop making decisions based on fear or pressure. You make them based on truth. The challenge is that most people have never taken the time to define their values. They have a vague idea, things like honesty, kindness, or hard work, but they haven't clearly identified which ones are non-negotiable for them personally. Without that clarity, it's easy to get pulled off course. You might find yourself in situations where something feels wrong, but you can't explain why. That's because you're bumping up against an unspoken value. When you name your values and commit to them, those moments become clear. This goes against what I stand for, so I won't do it. Living by your values isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it means saying no to opportunities that look good on paper, but don't feel right in your gut. Sometimes it means walking away from people who want you to compromise. Sometimes it means making a harder choice, now to protect your integrity later. But here's the truth. Comfort is temporary, while integrity is permanent. The people who are truly free are the ones who choose integrity, even when it costs them in the short term, because they know it's the only way to live without regret. I remember talking to a business owner who was offered a massive contract that could have doubled his company's revenue. The catch: the deal required him to cut corners in a way that would mislead customers. On paper, it looked like a dream opportunity. But for him, honesty was a non-negotiable value. He turned the deal down. At first, he worried he'd made a mistake. But within months, a better opportunity came along, one that aligned with his values and grew his business even more. That decision didn't just make him more successful. It made him more confident in himself, because he proved he could stand by what he believed. Here's what I want you to do: set aside time to write down your top 5 values. These are the principles you refuse to compromise on, no matter what. They might include integrity, freedom, family, contribution, creativity, or growth. Once you have them, use them as your decision-making filter. Before you commit to anything, whether it's a job, a relationship, or a big life choice, ask yourself, does this align with my values? If the answer is no, be willing to walk away. The short-term discomfort of saying no will always be smaller than the long-term pain of betraying yourself. When you live in alignment with your values, you attract people and opportunities that resonate with who you are. You stop wasting time on paths that aren't meant for you. You stop feeling the need to explain or justify your choices because you know they're rooted in something solid. And most importantly, you gain peace of mind, the kind that comes from knowing you're living authentically. True freedom is not doing whatever you want. It's doing what's right for you, regardless of outside pressure. It's the ability to look in the mirror and know you didn't sell out, you didn't bend just to fit in, and you didn't abandon yourself for the sake of convenience. When your values guide you, your path might not be the easiest, but it will always be the truest. And that is the kind of freedom no one can take away from you. Thank you very much.